we're just jamming.
All I know.
Yeah, that's all I want to know.
All I can tell you is, in 1943, I went into the Army, and he went on the road. At 15, went on the road with a band called Jack Teagarden. Jack Teagarden was a sensational Dixieland trumpet player. Sensational. And the band was built around that, and Stan fit into that band. I was in the Army for 3 years. After the second year, I think, 43, I came on furlough to New York, and Stan was in town, and he was then, by that time, with Benny Goodman. And he treated me, took me out to New Jersey. There was a club they were playing at, bought me dinner, drinks, and I sat and listened to the band. And I listened to Stan's solos. He'd matured. He went from 15 to 17. And 2 years later, he was a much more mature musical player, much more allowing what his talent had to come out rather than trying to be commercial. He just let it go and let it feel free. And that's what came out. A beautiful, melodic player.
Were you guys able to make fun of each other as far as like poke fun at, the guys, people were a lot less uptight about their ethnicities. In some ways, they were able to joke about those things. What kinds of things did he? You were 3 years older than him, but did he have a nickname? You're talking about,
No, he was Stan. He was always Stan Getz, and I was always Red Press.
You were always Red Press.
From the time of the Bronx, I went into the Army with a lot of the people that I knew in New York, and I was called Red then. I was called Red in the Army. When I got out of the Army, I went with bands being recommended by people that I was in the Army with, and so I was called Red. Interesting. My first band that I went to after I got out of the Army was a band called Bobby Sherwood, which you may not know the name. It's a good band. And I was with three of the people that were in the Army band with me were in that band, had joined that band after they got out, and they had gotten out before I did. And they recommended me, but I had to audition. Right? So I went to the audition, and Bobby put up what was the hardest saxophone part in the book, which had a lot of double time. And what he didn't know was at the top of the part, it said Red. I'd been playing that part for 2 years in the Army. It was written by one of the guys who was in the Army with us, who was now with the band, used his orchestrations that he wrote in the Army. So I was auditioning on a piece I practically knew by heart, right? Which I think I would have gotten the job anyway, but.
You said Teagarden was a trombone player, wasn't
Yes.
You said trumpet, so he was.
I said, oh no.
Yeah, so he was a prolific Dixieland trombone player.
Yeah,
a lot of the first line musicians like yourself went to the Army. That opened up a spot for Stan in Teagarden.
Of course.
In band.
A lot of young people got into bands at that point, and a lot of very old people got into bands. They were too old to be.
How do you think that experience at 15 impacted Stan?
I think it was negative.
Why?
I think he was thrown out on the road with older people, with what I didn't want to call him calloused, but to him it was a brand new experience, the world. And he's 15 years old, take you away from your family, stick him out on the road without any kind of guidance except from older people, drug addicts maybe. Of course, alcohol, of course, that was very prevalent then. And I believe it was too much for him. And that may be part of the reason that he ended up a junkie.
I mean, his daughters told me one time that the older guys in the band, again, they were not the best musicians because those musicians went to the army. You know, they found a woman with like venereal disease, and they'd be like, "You need to sleep with her." I mean, is that the kind of stuff that? What I'm saying is, were there stories that came out of that aside from the alcohol?
Well, I don't know that. I don't know stories. In terms of the woman with the venereal disease, don't forget a 15-year-old kid, and you're introducing sex to him. I mean, he's going to go with anything, right? You know.
Did you, I mean, you? A lot of people say that he was emotionally molded already. At that point, do you think he got stunted because of that experience?
Well, he was never brilliant. Stan was not brilliant. He was never deep, brilliant. You know what I mean? Intellectual. Right? He was just talented as a musician. I used to think when people, or singers, let's say, and sang so deep emotional singing, that they're deep emotional people. It's bullshit. Where one comes from has nothing to do where the other comes from. Musical talent is a thing unto itself. It's what it is. It's as perfect pitch is, as some people that can read some. My wife was that way. If she read it once, that's it. She knew it. She knew it. She would remember a book she would read in school, 500 pages, and try to think back at something, and she'd go, oh, that's on 340, right? It's a talent. And it has nothing to do with any other emotion. A genius is a genius. It doesn't make him a nice person. It makes them a genius.
Stan was a genius.
Yeah.
I ask you a question